Our long local nightmare is over. Wyatt Kaiser assigned a 2-year deal with a $1.7 million cap hit. Let's get into it next on the CHGO Blackhawks Emergency Podcast. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Emergency Podcast. Hope you're having a great evening. Wyatt Kaiser's having a decent evening. Just signed a 2-year deal with a $1.7 million AAV, so he is locked in. He is ready to go with camp opening tomorrow morning at 9:30 at Fifth Third Arena. So everything seems to be where it needs to be. Everyone's locked up. Everyone's ready to go. So here we go. Wyatt Kaiser is back. Mario, your initial thoughts?
They waited as long as they could, but glad that we are at a point here now where everyone is where they should be. Wyatt Kaiser is in camp. He's got a contract. And I think for the most part, he's getting double what he used to make. So that's nothing to scoff at. I don't think, but, as we've gone through this whole back and forth all summer, basically, of why isn't a deal getting done? What could they be far apart on? Is it term? Is it money? I think from my perspective at least, coming down to a 1.7 AAV over 2 years is a prove that you can be a guy that is going to be part of the group moving forward. I think that is a contract for a player like that. I think Wyatt Kaiser was a player like that. For as much as he's done well at times, he's also needed some work at times, as young defensemen do. Yeah. But you want to bet on the upside. We just saw Frank Nazar and Spencer Knight get longer term, more money. I think that's because the track record of who they can be is a little bit more proven and a little bit of a higher ceiling than Kaiser. But I think for the player he is and for the opportunity he's going to get, all in all, this is very fair, I think.
Yeah. Scott Powers for The Athletic, who is as plugged in as anybody on the beat, said it's a little less than what Kaiser's camp was seeking, which, of course, that's what a negotiation is. He reported a while ago that the Hawks were offering 1.1. Maybe his camp was asking for 2.5. You meet somewhere in the middle and everybody's happy. And look, I've said this about Wyatt Kaiser all along, even before this negotiation or stalemate or whatever you want to call it started, that he's an incredibly confident guy. He believes he's a good defenseman. He believes he deserves to play. I agree with him. I do think he's a good defenseman, and I do think he deserves to play, but he hasn't proven it yet. And consistently, kind of as you said a moment ago, Mario, and there's been ups, there's been downs. I would say more ups than downs, but for a guy with no leverage, with a bunch of guys who are ready to take that spot from him, if he wasn't there, I think he's got to be pretty happy with this. I can't imagine there's going to be hard feelings about this. I hope there's not. This is a really good opportunity for Wyatt Kaiser to show the Blackhawks who he thinks he is and to live up to the player that he thinks he is. And he thinks he deserved more money. His camp thinks he deserved more money. Then it's his opportunity now to come out and show it. I believe that number 2 left defenseman job is his to lose. I think that if you were to ask Jeff Blashill and Kyle Davidson right now, pencil in your opening night lineup, he would firmly be in that 2 left defenseman spot. So that's good. I know they're not a great team. They're not a playoff team, but to have a role that big at 23 years old, it's a good thing for him. And if he can keep growing the way he seems to think he's going to, and the way a lot of people think he's going to, he will cash out in 2 years and get a significant pay raise, one that he probably thinks he deserves. So I'm here for it, man. I think Wyatt Kaiser is going to come in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, wanting to prove himself, wanting to prove his value. Good for him. I'm ready to see it. And the more guys that arrive to camp that way, the better for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you want everyone to be in camp and competing for jobs. Everyone who's supposed to be there. And Wyatt Kaiser is supposed to be there. So if if they had opened camp tomorrow without Wyatt Kaiser around, it would feel weird, because you'd be like, okay, yes, there's Vlasic and there's Korchinski and Del Mastro and Allen and Matt Grizzlick's here as well. But how do you stack it up without Kaiser there? Because he's a guy that is in that mix. So it's good that we're going to be able to go into camp with the full roster and have that full competition. And I think that's what benefits this Blackhawks group, because you get to see, okay, who matches up where, who falls into line in the lineup where they're supposed to be. So it's a positive that he's there. And again, like I said, like the path to get here was interesting, was surprising. Didn't think we would get to the night before training camp opens without Wyatt Kaiser having a contract. But I look around the league and I look at guys that are in similar positions, similar ages, with similar contract numbers. Two guys in Philly with Igor Zamula and Cameron York. They're at 1.7 and 1.6 respectfully. You also look at Dylan Sandberg with Winnipeg. He's 26 years old at 1.4. Michael Kesserling with Buffalo is at 1.4. He's 25 years old. And then Juuso Välimäki with Utah, 26 years old. He's on a $2 million AAV. So you throw in Wyatt Kaiser into those names, and it's a lot of like guys that can be good depth pieces that are young. Some of them have more experience than Kaiser, some have less. So I think when you compare it to people around the league, it's pretty fair. And I think, I think for Kaiser, he's a guy that has a lot of belief in himself. And I think if you put him in a position of a challenge to be like, this is a prove it deal, you put him in a position like that, he's going to go out there and be betting on himself that he's going to outperform what his contract is. And that can only benefit him and the Blackhawks, because at that point, if he goes out and proves, I am a number two or a second pair defenseman that can play close to 20 minutes a night, be on the penalty kill, be a full-time NHL guy, then once we're at the end of this 2-year deal, you're talking about a more significant pay raise, because best case scenario for him, he's proved that he is in that conversation with the Alex Vlasics, with the Sam Rinzells, where he's a guy that's a part of the future.
Yeah, and I think it can be, just to what level, remains to be seen, like how high will he get. But remember, like a player like Trevor Van Riemsdyk was a meaningful part of really good Blackhawks teams. So you're not always going to have, and nothing against TVR, but I think he's played a long time. He's been an effective player, but he's never really risen to that level above where he was when he was with the Hawks. And that's fine. And I think, as this thing goes on, and as you have to start paying, Bedard his second deal, and, Nazar is well in there, but like Levshinov will need one, Rinzel will need one. And it's going to start to get expensive to keep all these guys around. So if you can get a guy playing at a, because even if Kaiser, continues at the path he's on, I still think after 2 years, you're probably looking at, let's just, estimate for inflation with the cap going up and salaries going up, 4, maybe 5 million, right? It's not, I don't think you're going to pay him more than you pay Alex Vlasic. So that's still a pretty valuable player for that money.
So that's something that I've kind of been thinking about with this, right? Because we had that conversation of, well, if you give Kaiser $4 million, is he as valuable, and has he proved as much as Alex Vlasic? But I don't think you can look at moving forward. I think the Alex Vlasic is the highest paid defenseman on the team, you're going to have to throw that out the window very quickly, because
Right.
maybe the hope and the the expectation is that maybe guys like Levshinov and Rinzel prove that they are $6 and $7 million defensemen. And you can't use Vlasic as the internal cap. And so what I think is that within this negotiation, however it went, as Scott Powers said, like, this is not the contract that the Kaiser camp was hoping for. I have to think from Kyle Davidson's perspective, he was thinking, well, maybe it wasn't going to be higher than Alex Vlasic, but I think maybe he had to kind of keep in mind of, like, this deal could have been a precedent setter for defensemen. And if you have a guy who comes up as a defenseman that has similar experience as Wyatt Kaiser, similar results as Wyatt Kaiser, like we could talk about with Del Mastro and Allen coming up next offseason needing contracts. And if they have back and forth, like, oh, they look good, but then they go to Rockford and then they come back, and like maybe then they kind of semi-establish themselves. If Wyatt Kaiser did that thing or went that path, and then you give him three or 3.5, well, then, Ethan Del Mastro is going to want 3.5, and Nolan Allen's going to want 3.5, and Kevin Korchinski, and then you kind of get into a spot where you're like, well, we've set this precedent, and not to say it would tank the cap, but I think you if you're Kyle Davidson, you have to kind of keep that in mind of, like, we can't just give everybody all this money, because that's how the Blackhawks of the past got in trouble. Everybody got all the money they wanted, and then they ran out of money. So I think with this, you kind of keep it as a precedent center of, this is a prove it dollar worth and a prove it term. This is very similar to what Philip Kurashev got. This is very similar to what Lucas Reichel got. And they were in those kinds of prove it situations. So outside of those guys, I think Kaiser is probably, of those three, set up to be a little bit more of like, I think he will prove it, and he's going to get a ton of opportunity to do it.
Sprout says, I genuinely think Kaiser proves us all wrong and turns into a 4 or 5. If he does, you have Vlasic, Korchinski, and Kaiser long term. I don't think that's a surprise. I think that, for me, that's the expectation, is that he is your, when all is said and done, if everything pans out the way you hope, that Kaiser is your third pair left defenseman. And, that's fine. You could totally live with that. Now, the question is, for this year, now with the PTO for Matt Grzelcyk, which may have been insurance for Wyatt Kaiser, but now you bring in a veteran guy who is almost half a point per game, power play specialist. That gives you the ability now to start Kevin Korchinski and Rockford or Del Mastro, or whoever you want to say it would be, at that third left spot, and you give it to a veteran for a while, almost the defensive version of Sam Lafferty, right? Like, well, you're here until a kid comes and takes your job, and that could be a week from now. It could be a month from now. It could be 2 months from now, but for now you're here. Or they just say, F it, come and enjoy camp, see if you can find work somewhere else. Thanks, but no thanks, because now Wyatt Kaiser's locked up. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but the Matt Grzelcyk thing does give the Hawks a little bit of flexibility now, and if they look at Korchinski or Allen or Del Mastro or whoever, and they're like, maybe a little more seasoning in Rockford, now they've got that luxury instead of having to say you're on the roster for opening night with Grzelcyk in the fold. So, look, I know people are pretty, like, resistant to the idea of Matt Grzelcyk, and truly I am too. I would prefer to have one of the kids make the team. At the same time, though, as we said the other day, if a kid is not ready, I don't want them to make it simply because they're a kid, especially defensively. You can kind of live, if Oliver Moore makes the team and it takes him some time up front to get his feet wet and he's learning on the fly, that's fine. You can kind of live with that with a forward. With defensemen, it's a lot harder. So I'm rooting for Korchinski. I hope it's Korchinski that makes that third or second, whatever you want to call it, left D spot. But Grzelcyk does give them a little bit of insurance, and we'll see how the preseason goes. If training camp goes well and the preseason games go well, we don't have to worry about it. Matt Grzelcyk is free to sign somewhere else, and the Hawks have the young core defense ready to go, which I'm here for. But either way, I'm not going to be mad. I just want them to make the right decision as it pertains to the ultimate development of their prospects, not just, I want to play with the shiny new toy right now.
Yeah, your best case scenario is that you don't need to worry about what Matt Grzelcyk does. I think that your best case scenario is that your young defensemen play well through the training camp and preseason, and you have to make a tough decision between who's going to be here and who's not. So I think that's your best case scenario. And, it seems like, the way that they played together at the end of last season, Kaiser and Levshunov might get the start together. That might be something that Andrew Sorensen, who's, going to be in charge of defensive work along with Mike Vellucci, like that could be something that he kind of says like, hey, when I was here last year, they worked. And that could be something that, you started off with. And if you're pairing a guy like Kaiser with Levshunov, you want that to be someone you can trust. And I think the Blackhawks want that to be the case moving forward for both Kaiser and Levshunov's sake. And then, you look at, okay, Murphy's going to be with maybe Korchinski, maybe Del Mastro. And I think you pencil in Vlasic and Rizal together, and that's your 6 going forward. So I think that's best case scenario. If you do have to have Matt Grzelcyk in the fold, I hope it is short term, because like up until 48 hours ago, there was no thought that anybody besides Connor Murphy on this team was going to be over the age of 25 for defensemen. So, and I think everyone got excited about that. So I would hope that with Kaiser in, you get 2 of those, 3 guys that we have constantly talked about on the left side with Korchinski, Del Mastro, and Allen. 2 of those guys look ready to go, and then you don't even worry about what Matt Grzelcyk has to offer.
Yeah. All right. Do us a favor. If you've not done it yet, please hit the like button for us. Make sure you subscribe to our page as well. Like button, especially helpful on these emergency pods, which are a little bit shorter. They need that little bit of a boost. So please hit that like button for us, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. Want to let you know what's coming up tomorrow. Camp opens. First session is at 9:30. They did change from 8:30 to 9:30 for tomorrow. So if you're planning on going to Fifth Third, 9:30 is the start time. Then there's a second session at 11:40, I believe. And then, Kyle Davidson speaks in between. Yeah. So 9:30 tomorrow. Hawks will be on the ice with Wyatt Kaiser. Very exciting. Now the offseason officially begins. I ended it earlier today, but now that Wyatt Kaiser is signed, it is officially over. A lot of people, by the way, asking about Connor Bedard's contract. That feels like it's going to happen next summer. I think Bedard is looking at the way he's been training and the way he's feeling, and all the reports out of these, people who have had eyes on him all summer, like, he looks different. He looks fast. He looks better. Mm-hmm. It would be wise. It would behoove Connor Bedard to wait to sign. So,
yeah, I'm not really concerned about that. You look at him and Alex Vlasic were talking on WGN yesterday morning, and that was brought up about, his contract. And he was just like, yeah, not worried about it. I mean, and Vlasic right there is just, it's like, get done when it gets done. Like, I don't think internally there's any worry. I don't think there should be any external worry about Bedard. It's not an if, it's a when. So,
yeah. 100%. Good point, by the way, made by Tyler in the chat. He says, I think we're seeing the Chris O'Hearn effect as well. One of the reasons he was brought in to help with these young player contracts, to help with the long-term salary cap planning. Yeah. Brought in this summer as part of the front office, kind of the contract guru, a guy who can really crunch the numbers, look ahead. I like that the Hawks hired someone I'm just going to drive me crazy. Maybe someone in the chat knows. The Bears had a guy like this on the payroll for like 20 years. And his job was just to manage like the salary cap negotiations.
Was it Cream Sleeve?
Bears, yes, it was Cream Sleeve. Bears salary cap guy. Oh, what was his name? Oh my God.
No idea.
Someone's going to have it. It was recent.
Stein. James says Stein. Somebody Stein. John Steinmiller. Is that who it was?
It was not John Steinmiller. Now you're just saying names out loud.
Cliff Stein.
Cliff Stein. That's it. Yes. Thank you.
Good job, James.
Thank you very much, James. You're the man.
I would have had no clue.
Cliff Stein. That was the guy. And look, that's the sort of stuff that you like from a hockey front office, is you identify maybe something that you feel like, you know what? I could use a little help in this department. Let's find the best guy for it, bring him in. So, yeah. Anyway, camp opens tomorrow. We'll be there 9:30. If you see us at the Fifth Third Arena, make sure you say hello. And if you're not there, we'll talk to you at 2 o'clock with Sound from the Locker Room. I'm sure we'll talk to Wyatt Kaiser. We're definitely going to hear from Kyle Davidson, hear from Jeff Blashill. Lots of hockey on the way. We are less than a week from the first preseason game. So here we go. It's here. We finally made it. Summer is over. The offseason is over. Hockey season is here. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2 on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.